Same crack in the plaster.
This is the story of Josef Fritzl, whose daughter was lost and forgotten in basement apartment and found alive after 24 years of horrific experience. In the story, you will understand what happened to Elizabeth, how she survived, and the rationale behind her vanish. Stay tuned. I'm Mr. Vanny. Welcome to our channel, Crime Chronicle 1. The 28th of August 1984, Amsterdam, Lower Australia, could be described in one word: steady. Streets lined with gum trees, mailboxes that never changed. People kept to their own gardens and their own barbecues. The Fritzl house weatherboard low slung, when toasties fitted into the pattern so well you barely noticed it. Fritz kept a tidy front lawn. He would wait at passing cars and tuck a newspaper under his arm like the model of a small-town man whose life had no loose edges while he maintained his steady engineering works. Inside the house, life had its own rhythms. Rosemarie, his wife, was the kind of woman who learned the exact sound of every cupboard closing in the house. She ran a hands-on household, bread on Sundays, school lunches folded like neat paper boats, a calendar corner bristling with birthdays and dentist appointments. Joseph's other children, older teens, practical, used to doing course life mostly above the ground of ordinary days. Homework, part-time shifts at the supermarket and restaurants, an unbeaten soccer team that complained but turned up anyway. Elizabeth, Fritz's third child, after completing compulsory education at the age 17, Elizabeth started a course to become a waitress. In January 1983, she ran away from home and went into hiding in Vienna with a friend from work. She was found by police within 3 weeks and returned to her parents in Amsterdam. Elizabeth Ray joined her waitress course, finished it in mid-1984, and was offered a job in Linz. One morning, after Elizabeth turned 18, Rosemarie got to realize that Elizabeth had stopped coming down to breakfast. Neighbors concluded she had taken a job in the city. Rosemarie assumed the distance between them. Those quiet, unresolved mother-daughter tensions might have pushed Elizabeth to seek independence. But a cold intuition gnawed at her. Something felt wrong, something she could not articulate. Meanwhile, earlier before that morning, Fritzl lured her into the basement of the family home, saying that he needed help carrying a door. In reality, he had been converting the basement into a makeshift prison chamber. The door was the last thing he needed to seal it. After Elizabeth held the door in place while Fritzl fitted it into the frame, he held an ether-soaked towel on her face until she was unconscious, then moved her into the chamber. But houses keep secrets the way their walls keep heat. Something that can't be seen easily is not necessarily absent. Rosemarie sometimes found the basement door locked at odd hours. She noticed materials in the shed planks and fastened herself stacked in a way that suggested a man at work on something permanent. Fritz took to working the soil in a particular narrow patch of the garden late at night. He said he was fixing the drainage. He rose early in the mornings with usually correct reasons for being gone: hardware stores, deliveries, old friends in the next county. Rosemarie trusted him because trust had its own economy in their marriage. It fed them both in small ways. In the kitchen, he was always helpful, boiling eggs, preventing burns, foraging for missing batteries. He presented as patient with small children, charming with visitors, apologetic when the lawnmower failed. That performance was so convincing the family assumed that a man who could fix the radio could not possibly tear his world irrevocably at the seams. But in quiet moments, Rosemarie would trace the invisible shape of unease like a bruise. Elizabeth's empty quilt folded at the foot of a bed, the way new shoes gathered dust in the hall, a receipt for an item from a medical supply shop that didn't align with any known household need. She put questions to herself like bookmarks, small safe queries she could shelf. The town asked no further. How often did one neighbor pry at another's livelihood? In the kitchen, Fritz's voice would feather over the table like steam. She needed space, he said once. She'll write when she's settled. The rest of the family shrugged with the fatigued acceptance of those who accept the easiest version of a worrying truth. The older beaux helped with chores they'd earlier shirked. Days passed, weeks passed, no sight of Elizabeth, no letter, no trace. Rosemarie became worried and reported a case of a missing teen. Fritz spoke for her, shed the right amount of distress when needed, wrote the right notes to local friends, sent platitudes to the police about young people and their choices. A letter postmarked in Brana stated that she was tired of living with her family and was staying with a friend. She warned her parents not to look for her or she would leave the country. Fritzl told police that she had most likely joined a cult. The town accepted the tidy story. It fit right into the neat houses and tidy hedges. The police took a routine interest: missing persons forms, photographs pinned to notice boards, questions asked of friends and employers. When the trail chilled quickly, a bank cart unused. No camera sightings from the town. Investigators shifted to routine closure and moved on to the next case. Fritz's composure was an unhelpful obstruction. He seemed like the kind of man who had nothing to hide. Though Rosemarie kept a small litany of oddities that fretted at her mind. Postmarks came from places Elizabeth would not have visited. A letter arrived once that spoke only a few sentences, and then stopped as if the writer had found language insufficient. The family had rituals that made the household feel seamless. Sunday dinners were a theater of normalcy. Fritz would carve meat while Rosemarie served peas and mashed potatoes. The teenagers complained about cutlery always the same side of the plate to the outsider. These were the snapshots of a functioning family. To Rosemarie, they were the masking of something else. A man who had learned how to be seen as tender and prosaic at certain times, and imperious and controlling at others. She thought of Elizabeth's soft voice, and the way it had trailed off over the last months. She saw her, the ache in her chest sharpen. Elizabeth's world beneath the floor was not built all at once. It was assembled incrementally, measured in small acts of control. Banal routines turned into prisons. She learned how to mark time by the sound of Fritz's keys, by the cadence of the footsteps overhead, by the way morning arrived like a rumor. When she first realized she would not be going back up when the door closed, and the lock clicked, she felt something in her chest fold in on itself like paper. There, in the dim, she lived in a narrow geography of survival. She fought, pleaded, tried several escape plans which failed, till she chose to leave rather than pushing for further threat. She taught herself to hush. She learned to reply with the particular kind of calm that keeps a dangerous person from deciding to escalate. She kept records in hidden corners, timbers scratched with dates and initials, a map made of memory so that if rescue ever came. Fritz visited, sometimes with a warmth engineered to normalize the impossible. He would bring clothes that smelled faintly of the garden of oils and soil. His visits had an economy to her feet: instruct, return upstairs. To those who saw only the surface, Rosemarie, the older Sans disappeared as a man involved, engage, the very sort of hands-on father who helps with homework and fixes broken toes. Elizabeth learned to build barriers where she could. She planted seeds in a tiny patch carved from the earth under the floor, where a narrow sliver of light found its way in. She made a game of memorizing the constellations. These acts were resistance. They were the preservation of identity in a place designed to erase it. There was a long, terrifying calculus to secrecy. Elizabeth knew the rule: do not cry aloud when the keys came. Do not make sudden noises, and never, ever leave marks that could be traced to the surface. She understood that a single misstep could undo everything. And yet it was in those constraints she became subtle in the ways a person becomes cunning out of necessity. The small signals, the 3 knocks, a particular cough, a code of human pleading disguised as pattern. On the 10th of November 1999, after 15 years of Elizabeth's disappearance, 3 kids, Lisa, an infant, Monica and Alexander as toddlers, arrived the Fritz home like stray notes inserted into a family song, small, quiet, smiling, who were approved by local social service authorities as their foster parents. Officials said that Fritzl very plausibly explained how he rescued them from a fleeing single mom. The family received regular visits from social workers, who saw and heard nothing to arouse their suspicions. Children who, by whatever strange logic Fritz offered, needed care. Rosemarie took them in as she would any child in distress. She laundered their clothes and braided their hair. She treated them like kin because that was the currency of her heart. She never asked the impossible question: how did these children come to him? Instead, she assumed he was taking responsibility for children blown about by bad luck or bad choices. The household adapted. The kitchen table swelled with more plates, more calls for homework help, more scuffed rugby boots. The children learned to fit their voices inside the rooms they shared. Rosemarie, who could sense the minor dissonances of the home, found that the work of mothering made it easier to overlook small mismatches. She warmed to the babies in the way people warm to light in a cold room, instinctively, gratefully. Her instinct to nurture was exploited by a man who knew how to produce the exact images that would disarm her. In public, the house became a model of success. The Fritzl family hosted barbecues. Fritz fixed fences for neighbors, as if to signal normality by action. Those who came left reassured. It takes an intentional eye to detect performance in someone's decades-long show of normalcy. It takes resources and courage. Not everyone has to pry. Within the house, beneath conversations about school and shopping lists, a different language simmered, coded, constrained, a grammar of fear and compliance. The precarious architecture of Fritz's secret life requires only a single unpredictable variable to falter. On the 19th of April 2008, Fritzl was cited at the hospital for emergency medical attention of a 3-year-old Kirsten, who would turn 20 for that same year, fell unconscious. Kirsten was taken by ambulance to a local hospital, the Landesklinikum in Amsterdam, and was admitted in serious condition with life-threatening kidney failure. Fritzl later arrived at the hospital claiming to have found a note written by Kirsten's mother. He discussed Kirsten's condition in the note with a doctor, Albert. Hospitals, however, are places that ask questions men like Fritz avoid. The clinical bright lights and procedural checklists do not take kindly to patch stories. Medical staff found aspects of Fritzl's story puzzling and alerted police on the 21st of April. The police broadcast an appeal on public media for the missing mother to come forward and provide information about Kirsten's medical history. The investigation into Elizabeth's disappearance was also reopened. Fritzl repeated his story about Elizabeth being in a cult and moving on with her life without wanting anyone bothering about her, and presented what he claimed was the most recent letter from her, dated January 2008, posted from the town of Kematen. The police contacted Manfred Wolfert, a church officer and expert on cults, who raised doubts about the existence of the group Fritzl described. He noted that Elizabeth's letter seemed dictated and oddly written. Rosemarie was invited to the hospital for questioning. "I've never seen this girl before," she whispered, trembling as she stared at Kirsten's unconscious form. "Joseph, what is this? Who is she?" For a moment she felt the world rematerialize into smaller pieces of possibility. Possibilities she had kept submerged now surfaced by the weak agony of a dying girl. As the hospital asked more, the threads of Fritz's neat story began to unravel. A girl of almost 24 years without medical records, no school files, no family doctor. A girl whose skin seemed almost translucent, whose eyes, when they briefly fluttered open under bright hospital light, held a frightened, animal confusion that chilled the nurses observing her. The authorities reached out with the protocol for unusual cases. Social services, child protection specialists, human rights detectives who scan timelines and receipts, and the small inconsistencies that tell you when a story is a constructed lie. Fritz and Rosemarie were arrested for further questioning, and investigation began. On the third day, Kirsten's eyelashes fluttered like someone learning to see again. The fluorescent lighting above her hospital bed shocked her senses. The room was too bright, too wide, too unfamiliar. A nurse standing beside her stood immediately, observing carefully. Being more friendly than anyone could ever be, gave her a warm and lasting smile, held her hand softly and began with asking her, "How do you feel?" She responded that she is fine. The nurse helped her to lean backward a little, raising her head, still looking around, but the nurse assured her that everything would be all right. Kirsten asked the nurse, "How did I get here?" "Mr. Fritz brought you here unconscious." "You mean my dad?" "Yeah, your dad. Your name?" She replied. "Kirsten. What of your mom?" She was speechless, brought her face down, no more words. The conversation was recorded, transcribed. Social workers enter trained as scanning her body language, her pauses, her fear. "Would you like to see your mother?" one asked softly. Kirsten nodded. "But I don't think you can reach where she is," she whispered helplessly. "She's in a small room." Like she used her hands to gesture the cramped dimensions of the cellar. "With my other siblings." The room froze. The nurse's pen slipped from her fingers. Every professional in the room recognized what Kirsten had just revealed. A hidden woman, hidden children, a cellar-sized prison. The unimaginable had become undeniable. When the authorities moved in, Fritzl told investigators how to enter the chamber through a small hidden door, opened by a secret keyless entry code. They did so with the kind of procedural intensity that leaves no room for performance. Breaks were made where walls had been fortified. Doors were opened that had been sealed for years. 3 quiet knocks and old coded plea met the ears of those who were now searching, not for the neatness of Fritz's life, but for the human truth of what had been hidden. The rescue itself was less a cinematic struggle than a catalog of practical care. Inside, Elizabeth, Stefan, and Felix stood frozen in terror as flashlights pierced their darkness. Elizabeth shielded her eyes. Her voice was hoarse, trembling. "Please don't hurt my children." Those words shattered every heart in the room. Children were lifted into daylight with blank, bewildered expressions, as if sunlight itself needed naming. Elizabeth walked out slow and steady, her face shaped by a dozen small, terrifying improvised acts of endurance. The oldest children blinked at the world as if they had been given a language for the first time. Medical teams attended first, nutrition assessments, physical examinations, 1,000 small questions asked gently, carefully. On the 8th of May 2008, Elizabeth was ready to speak. Media and journalists flooded Fritz's home. Her testimony lit the world aflame. She began. It all started at age 11. As I grew, the abuse became intensive. Till age 17, when I thought I could end it. After completing my compulsory education, in January 1983, I ran away from home and went into hiding in Vienna with a friend from work. I was found by police within 3 weeks and returned to my parents in Amsterdam. I rejoined my waitress course, finished it in mid-1984, and was offered a job in Linz. My nightmare began on the 28th of August 1984, when Fritz asked that he needed help carrying a door. I held the door in place while Fritzl fitted it into the frame. He held an ether-soaked towel on my face until I was unconscious. Then I woke up seeing myself in the chamber. Later he came. I fought back till I got tired of fighting. No one came to my rescue. He gave me several threats that if I do not comply to his rules, that I would die here and no one will ever locate my body. I made several attempts to escape in his absence, but there was no way of escape. The abuse continued. Over the 24 years, Fritzl entered the chamber almost every day, for a minimum of 3 to 4 times a week, bringing food and other supplies, and repeatedly assaulting me. I gave birth to 7 children for him. 1 child died at infancy, baby Michael, shortly after birth. 3 kids, Lisa, Monica, and Alexander, were removed from the chamber as infants to leave upstairs when the space could no longer contain us, leaving me with the 3 older children, Kirsten, my first daughter, and 2 sons Stefan and Felix. Following the 4th child's birth in 1994, Fritzl enlarged the chamber from 380 to 590 square feet. He made the children, and I worked digging out soil with our bare hands for years before completing the project. We had a television, a radio, and a video cassette player. Food could be stored in a refrigerator and cooked or heated on hot plates. I taught the children to read and write. Life continued like that till when Kirsten's health condition grew worse. I feared I would lose her. I pleaded continually for medical attention, till one day he agreed to help, but I must steer clear from his plans, which I agreed. I never knew this would be my lucky year, but I have lost everything. Alredish burst into tears, face on ground. She was taken away by the social workers, who felt she was becoming emotional again. Rosemarie broke down when she saw her daughter, grief and guilt pouring out in agonized waves. I didn't know, she sobbed. My God, Elizabeth, I didn't know. The public reaction was immediate and vast. The town that had been complacent was shaken in a way that regret bleeds into. How had we not seen? Newspapers wrote their tie-day headlines. Legal experts spoke of sentences and precedents. And neighbors who had once smiled in passing now waited at their fences with the nameless discomfort of people confronting the limits of neighborly knowledge. The public reaction was immediate and vast. The town that had been complacent was shaken in a way that regret bleeds into. How had we not seen? Newspapers wrote their tie-day headlines. Legal experts spoke of sentences and precedents. And neighbors who had once smiled in passing now waited at their fences with the nameless discomfort of people confronting the limits of neighborly knowledge. On the 29th of April, it was announced that DNA evidence confirmed Fritzl as the biological father of Elizabeth's children. The judge's sentence was harsh and unequivocal, a long, indefinite term of imprisonment appropriate to the severity of the offenses and the lifetime of harm inflicted. Fritzl's arrest was procedural and final. He was charged with a cluster of crimes: abduction, unlawful imprisonment, enslavement, abuse, murder by negligence, and decades of systemic abuse. The court case that followed was a theater of accountability. Fritzl's criminal history was open. In 1967, Fritzl broke into the Linz home of a 24-year-old nurse while her husband was away and raped her while holding a knife to her throat, threatening to kill her if she screamed. According to an annual report for 1967 and a press release of the same year, he was also named as a suspect in a case of attempted rape of a 21-year-old woman and was known for indecent exposure. Fritzl was arrested and served 12 months of an 18-month prison sentence. In accordance with Australian law, Fritzl's criminal record was expunged after 15 years. As a result, more than 25 years later, the local social service authorities did not discover his criminal history when he applied to adopt and/or foster Elizabeth's 3 children. Suspected murders. On the 12th of November 1986, at 6:40 am, 17-year-old Martina Claudia Posch left her home in Clyburn, Upper Australia, to reach a nearby bus stop. When she did not show up for an agreed meeting with her boyfriend at around 5 p.m., the boyfriend called Posch's mother, who had assumed her daughter was already with him. She later learned that Posch had not shown up for work that day. Authorities soon determined through witness statements that she had not been on the bus that morning either. In addition to Posch's murder, Fritzl was looked into as a suspect in the death of Anna Neumayer, age 17, who was killed with a captive bolt pistol in a field in Linz on the 17th of August 1966. She had disappeared on her way to Wells, 35 kilometers from where Fritzl worked at the time. Another potential victim was Gabriela Supakov, age 42, a prostitute who was murdered in August 2007. Her body was found at the Lipno Reservoir near the Australia and Czech border, at a time when Fritzl was on holiday there. Fritzl was not charged with these murders due to a lack of evidence. Elizabeth and her children entered a long, fragile journey of healing, a world of therapy, medical care, rehabilitation, learning sunlight, learning space, learning freedom. This is a tale of a house that kept a secret and of the world outside that learned to late. Then finally, to our viewers, if this story leaves you with a final question, let it be this. 1. How do communities build the kind of care and attention that prevents such secrets from being possible in the first place? 2. How manipulating was Fritz to keep his wife's suspicions under control? 3. How was he able to manage career and families under the same roof with ease? This is mystery, though keep your comments coming, let's discuss. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to Crime Chronicle 1 channel for your daily storytelling that keeps you vigilant and informed.
4 walls, same crack in the plaster, counting the pipes like a crooked clock. Footsteps above me fade into ceilings. I learned every silence, every lock, name on my tongue, but I speak it in whispers.